Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to episode 1 of Travel Talk Tips and Trivia. Thank you for joining me for this video today. This is the first in a new series I'm going to be doing on my channel where I teach you a sentence or phrase or a couple of sentences in a different language that might be useful to you in traveling to a country where they speak that language. I'm going to share with you one of my best travel tips and then we're going to have a fun trivia question at the end. All right, today's language is French. French is my strongest language that I know besides English, but we're going to be starting out with something fairly basic. Today in French, we are going to be learning this. Bonjour, je m'appelle Heather. Okay, so what I just said there was, hello, my name is Heather. So bonjour is hello in French. If you break it down, it actually means good day. Bon is good. And jour is day. So you're actually saying good day, but it means the same thing as hello. Okay, je m'appelle Heather. One thing I need to explain to you about French is a very smooth, flowing language. A lot of times when you say things in French, you're literally flowing the words together very smoothly. And when you hear a native French speaker talk, it's going to sound all really like one big long thing because it's so smooth and tied together. For example, two places here, je is I, like I did this, je. But because the M is right after it, you almost say them all together like j'aime. And then the m'appelle, see how there's an apostrophe there? Many times in French, and this is true in Spanish and I think Italian too, when there's a word that starts with a vowel, they will actually put an apostrophe and link the word ahead with it. So this word is actually short for, it looks like me, but it's me, and it means like myself, okay? Appelle is the first person singular form of the verb appeler. Appeler means to call. So what this sentence literally means is I call myself Heather. So that's literally what you're saying. You're saying I call myself Heather, but it's how you would say my name is Heather, je m'appelle Heather in French. So just like appeler means to call, basically all other verbs in French are going to end with that ER, but it's pronounced A. Appeler. Here's some other examples of verbs. Manger means to eat. So you would change the ending of the verb depending on if you're talking about just yourself or you or we eat. I'll show you in a second what I mean. Marcher means to walk. Voyager, one of my favorites, means to travel. Let's use the word voyager, which means to travel, to show you the basics of conjugating a verb in French. Now, conjugation means how we change the verb so that it changes along with the subject of the sentence, for example. So, for example, in English, they're pretty much always the same. I talk, you talk, we talk, he talks, she talks. The only thing that changed there was we added an S. They talk. But there's not a lot of variation in verbs in English. But in French, the verbs will change, especially the ending of the verb. And you'll see these same endings no matter what the verb is. So I just want to share them with you so you'll recognize them when you see them. So I took voyager, which is to travel, and I wrote all the different forms of it. So, je voyage, tu voyages, il or elle voyage, vous voyagez, nous voyageons, il, elle voyage. Okay. Some of them you're like, wait a second, they're spelled different, but they sound the same. True. All right, what these mean is I travel, you travel, he or she travels, you travel. Now, this form of you, vous, is more formal than this form of you, tu. Tu is more personal, intimate, someone you know well. The other thing that this you means is if it's more than one person. So if I'm saying you just to one person, my sister, it's you. But if I'm saying you to a group of people or a pair of people, I would use this form of you, vous, which is plural. It's plural or formal, if that makes sense. Nous voyageons, we travel, and il or elle with an S is they. And it's either masculine they or feminine they. And sometimes it doesn't matter, like if it's a mixed group of people. Okay, so je voyage, I travel. Tu voyages with an S. Whenever you use tu, the verb is always going to have an S. Tu voyages. But you don't say the S. It still sounds just like this one. Il or elle voyage. It's the same as the singular first person up here. So I travel, he travels, she travels. So even though in English it changes from travel to travels, it's spelled the same and pronounced the same in French. Vous voyagez. Every time you use vous, the verb is going to end in ez. So vous voyagez is you travel to someone I don't know very well or a group of people. Nous voyageons, and I had to change it to, see how it's E-O-N-S, but that O-N-S is always going to be there whenever you use the nous form. So we. And il or elle with an S, but again, you do not pronounce the S. Voyage. It ends in ENT. Whenever you're saying they, the verb is going to end in ENT, but you don't say the ENT. You just say voyage. But you're going to want to make sure that you emphasize that last consonant in the verb so that you can kind of tell, because pay attention to something. Il voyage, il voyage. They're basically the same when you hear them. So you're going to have to use some context clues if you're just listening and you can't see it written out to determine the difference between the singular form, he or she travels, and the plural form, they travel. So that's our first lesson in French. I hope that was helpful to you. Let me know down below if you have any questions about anything I talked to in our French lesson today. All right, today's travel tip is book non-stop flights. I talked about this extensively in this video where I shared my son Andrew's experience flying to Italy in his senior year of college during his J term in January of 2019. Boy, that did not go well. And one of the problems that they had in that trip was that they had not booked nonstop flights. Now, I talk about it more extensively in that video, but I want to go over again an important difference that you need to understand when you book flights. There is a difference between a direct flight and a nonstop flight. A direct flight may appear that it doesn't make any stops, but it might. It might look like it's going to take you from New York to San Francisco without stopping. However, all that means is that the flight number is not going to change. It's probably going to still be the same aircraft, but it doesn't necessarily tell you that, oh, this flight 123 from New York to San Francisco is actually two legs of flight 123 from New York to Oklahoma City, and then flight 123 part 2 from Oklahoma City to San Francisco. They are probably even going to make you get off the plane, even if you just get right back on it. But a direct flight only refers to the flight number. It does not necessarily refer to the fact that the airplane isn't going to stop anywhere on that route. So be very careful with direct flights because it might not be what you think it is. However, a non-stop flight literally means what it says. It is a flight that does not stop, okay? That is an airplane that I got on at JFK in New York City, and I flew without stopping all the way to San Francisco International Airport, and the flight didn't change, didn't stop, didn't land anywhere in between. It just flew straight there without stopping. That is a nonstop flight. You want nonstop flights whenever possible. The reason you want nonstop flights whenever possible is because every time you have to take off and land or do anything in an airport, you have the potential for delays and problems. Something could go wrong with the aircraft. Something could go wrong with the crew changeover, or the crew's worked too many hours and they have to sleep now. Something could go wrong with the whole air traffic control system around the country or the world even, and things get affected and everything gets bumped. So every time you have to land or take off or do anything from an airport, you have the potential for delays, you have the potential for problems, so you want to minimize those as much as possible. Once you're on the plane and you're taking off, and the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to land at your destination, that's going to be your most stress and worry-free scenario. I especially recommend, as long as it's like within like 4 hours, if you're traveling with young children, I really think it's important to have nonstop flights, because every time you have to go up and down in the airplane, that's going to affect their ears and they're going to be uncomfortable and they're going to cry. And every time you have to okay, we got to get back on the airplane now, guys, or if you're dealing with car seats and strollers and stuff, you're just making a lot of extra work for yourself. So if you're taking, a domestic flight, Minneapolis to Florida, I never would change planes on a route like that, because that's just a lot of extra hassle that you don't need to be dealing with. So my tip for today is for you to book nonstop flights whenever possible. Okay, and here is today's trivia question. What is the most mountainous country in Europe? Please submit your guesses for the answer to that trivia question in the comments below. I've decided not to make these multiple choice. I'm just going to make these trivia questions open-ended, and I'm really curious to see what everybody's guesses are for the correct answer. Please just put your first guess. Don't go Google it and look it up and, you can do that later if you want to, but before you do that, put your guess. What's the first thing that you think of down in the comments below? And I'm curious to see what everybody's answers are. And then in the next video, which will be next week on Wednesday, I will be revealing the answer to today's trivia question for you. So be sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss a notification of my upcoming videos. And be sure you check back next week for episode number 2 of Travel Talk Tips and Trivia. Have a great day, everyone, and safe travels.